Hey rock stars, it's Rox and I am coming to you today with a special all-election coverage edition of Top of the Blogs, okay? So without further ado, this is just a little bit of talk about what's at the top of the blogs. Let's get to it. Okay, you guys, so I had originally said I wasn't going to talk anymore about the election because honestly and truly I am electioned out. But I do understand that people still want to talk about it. People still want to vent about it. There are still other things, fallout and whatnots that has happened since the election. And I was just like, okay, Roxanne, it wouldn't really be fair as a social media expert, if I may, to just be like, okay, I ain't talking about it no more. Sometimes we got to do things for the greater good. So this one is strictly for y'all, because I'd have been like, fuck this, okay? I'm just kidding. I wrote down the things that seem to be the most pertinent of the election, what people are all talking about right now, and we gonna try to put it all into order for y'all. But this is gonna be it. I promise you, I'm done for a while. So today, y'all get it all out in the comments. And just like I did on my election video yesterday, I am not even getting involved in the comments. It's all y'all. All right, you guys, so the first thing I want to talk about is this whole idea of the electoral vote versus the popular vote. So right now, the big thing is the electoral vote, the electoral college, and people wanting to do away with the electoral college because the popular vote is the more true feelings of the American citizen. And that sometimes, as we saw with Trump being elected into office, the electoral vote and the popular vote does not mesh. The thing about the electoral vote and the popular vote is that people don't care about the electoral vote until the unpopular candidate wins. When the popular candidate wins and it goes along with the electoral college, then everybody is happy. But when when they don't go together, then it's all like this. We can't get it together. Okay, so first I want to give you guys a little bit, because I understand the electoral college. I saw a lot in my comments that people were saying, oh, your vote doesn't count because the electoral college is the ones who actually put the person in office. And that's true, but you guys are twisting the concept and twisting the words and not really fully looking at the picture. So I thought that I would kind of explain it to you guys. Now, this is just, I ain't no historian. Okay, I just did a little research, and so this is my understanding of it, and I'm gonna put it out there like this for y'all. Like this right here. So, the Electoral College was started hundreds of years ago. And the original feelings of the Electoral College, let me try my best to make sense of it. Basically, our forefathers rejected the idea of just relying on a popular vote because they were concerned that the larger states that had a larger population would only vote for the candidate that was from their state or their region, the ones that they were most familiar with. So that meant that your smaller states that has a smaller population would never be counted in a popular vote because the larger states would always get the credit. Okay, they would always be the ones to usurp the presidential election and put that person into place. So I'm assuming back in the day, there were way more people that were running for presidency. And so in order to try to make it fair, the smaller states that had a smaller population have a smaller amount of electors, and the larger states have a larger amount of electors, but still it's within reason to make sure that everybody is equal when it comes to their vote. Okay, so you can have electors, they range from 3 in the smaller states. I think they said DC has just a special place where they actually have more electors. I think they have 7 or something like that. And then all the way up to 54. California being the largest state, they have 54 electors. So that is why when you look at the map and you see that it's all red, and then you got like a splash of blue on the west coast because it's usually California, Washington, Oregon. Then you've got down here, Florida usually was Democratic. Well, I don't know if usually, but I know when Obama won, it was Democratic. And then you have up there in the corner on the right, where New York and Massachusetts and all that was blue. And then you had up until a couple of days ago up at the top where Michigan and Wisconsin, and up there where the fist is, the what is this? It's the right on thing up there. That was blue. But the rest of the United States for the most part is red. Well, that could alarm you when you're looking, but you have to think about the electors that actually come from those places. So you're getting 2, 3, 3, 6, 5, 5, so you just kind of add them up together. But if you get the larger states, then that is how you get more electors. So now fast forward to today, and as you know, it's whittled down, and it's not all these people that's running for presidency, and you basically have two parties, which is the Republicans and the Democrats. You might have your liberal party, your independent, and so you have the third party or whatever, but the two main ones we know is the Democrats and the Republicans. So now the whole idea of the popular vote and the Electoral College might be dated, because now when we say the popular vote usually is the majority of the nation, and it's not necessarily just a region. So the Electoral College, when you win a series of victories, that's why we look at each state is really just kind of like a race within each state. Okay, so you want to win as many states as you can. The victories come when you win that state. So we already knew she was going to get California. That's automatic 54, and you just kind of hope that you can pick up some other states along the way. So that is why the Electoral College doesn't necessarily work the same today as it did back in, when it was originally came up with. But it is the law. So people are now complaining that the Electoral College should not exist. And I tend to be one of those ones that says that maybe there needs to be something done with this Electoral College, because it's not really necessarily the true feeling of the American people. But until that happens, then that's what we got to go with. Now, like I said, people don't never complain about the Electoral College until it doesn't go along with the popular vote. So if you want the Electoral College to be done away with, we do even see a tweet that Donald Trump tweeted back in 2012 saying that the Electoral College was a disaster, that it needed to be done away with, but he won on the electoral vote, but not on the popular vote. So I'm wondering if he still feels that same way today. Okay, but every time that there is an election, people start talking about the Electoral College and all of that, and it's just that's just what it is right now. Like I said, they can make some changes, but until that happens, then we got to go with it. Now, there were people also in my comments that were saying, that this was just one vote, and there's still another vote, in December, where the electors actually go and vote for the president, put their votes in, and so that it may change when that happens, but that is pretty much not going to happen. Okay, electors are sworn in, and their pledge is to represent the candidate that they're sent there to represent. Okay, so if I voted in California and my votes all went to Hillary Clinton, then I am expecting my 54 people to go and cast the vote for Hillary Clinton, and the same for Donald Trump. So even though it's happened 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 times in history, in the whole history of the Electoral College, it is highly unlikely for somebody to get in there and not go with what they've been sent there to represent. Even if there is 1 or 2 that decide to jump off and, go off rogue on their own, I think they said they call those people faithless or unfaithful electors. There's not going to be enough of them to sway the vote. Okay, so what ends up happening is you go against what you pledged to say what you were going to do, and I'm sure that would affect your standing within your own public, your own political party. So people are saying, it's still hope they can change the vote back, but it's not. Okay, you just need to go on and accept that Donald Trump is the elect, and we need to go on from there. So that's it on the electoral and the popular. Like I said, I'm not a historian, so wherever I might have messed up, I was just trying to give it to you guys in the most layman of terms that I could. There are other factors in the Electoral College, but that is the main thing that people need to understand. So when you vote, whoever in that one individual state has the most votes, their electors on to represent that candidate. So your vote does count, but it counts as a state and not as a whole. So that's something that you need to keep in mind with the popular and the electoral votes. Just wanted to make that clear for you guys. Hopefully did that make sense to you guys? And then you guys wanted me to talk about the speeches. I did watch everybody's speech, and we'll start with Donald Trump. So his acceptance speech was a different Donald Trump than we have seen over the last, 18 months. Way more humble. I'm not sure if he was shocked, because they kept on saying that his team did not expect for it to go this way in any way. They were preparing themselves for a loss. And when this turned around for them within a matter of 4, 5, 6, 7 hours, I can imagine the shock there. So when he came out on the stage to, thank his people, a way more humble, way more tolerable Donald Trump. And, hopefully this is, what Donald Trump reminds me of? I've always told you guys that he sounds much like a really bad kid. Okay, you know how you at the store and you got your badass kid in the stroller, and a little nigga won't quit crying and screaming and carrying on, and you trying to search around in your bag and your diaper bag and your purse, you looking for his little goldfish or some juice, a couple of fruit snacks or something, so that he will shut up. And he keeps on going on and on and on and on. You guys, this was my Joseph. He would carry on, and I would be frantic trying to figure out what it was going to be to get him to be quiet so that we can shop in peace and everybody would quit looking at me in the store. And then finally, okay, I found an old dusty ass binky at the bottom of my bag, okay? Honey, I put that in my mouth, dealt with the lint and put it in his mouth. And then all was well. That is Donald Trump. The exact same way that he carried on with his temper tantrums and his fussing and his speaking out and acting a plumb fool. The minute you give him what he wants, then he's okay. I am wondering if this will be more of the Donald Trump that we see now that he has what he wants, which is the presidency. Time will tell, okay? But when we saw him talk up there on the podium and he talked about all the things that he's going to do, fine, okay, let's talk about what he said he was going to do. He wants to get rid of the illegal immigrant criminals. We know that. He wants to build this wall. He has generals working on getting rid of ISIS, okay, and they have 30 days to do this. He says Obamacare will be repealed and replaced, and the fact that he has the full support of the Republicans, and they're in the House and the Senate, that this is something that he can do like this. Only needs 51%, and I'm sure that he will get the support of the Republicans on Obamacare, so we can say goodbye to that now. Y'all better make whatever appointments you need to. They're going to get rid of gun-free zones on schools and military bases, and NAFTA, he says the trade deal will go away. Okay, now Iran has already said that, bitch, you better not fuck up this agreement that we already have. So we're going to see what happens there. Now I'm mixing, I think, his acceptance speech with his the next day when he talked about his first 100 days in office. But so these are two speeches that he's talking about, but those are the plans that he plans on doing. I think he said day one. I was like, boy, that seems like a busy ass day to me. But he seems hopeful. Child, whatever. I don't understand why you would want to take away a gun-free zone by a school, and I can't. Certain things I just can't understand. Okay, but look, that's the man that won, child, so okay. He had his family up there on stage with him, his wife, and his youngest son. This is the first time that we have actually really seen him, and it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm thinking the boy probably was tired. He looked like he was over it before it even started. When you heard somebody yell out, "Kill Obama," even the little boy was shocked, like, oh my God. I mean, what kind of craziness is this? But it was his speech. He says he's ready to get in office and make it happen. And okay, child, if that's what you're going to do, then let's see it get done. As far as Hillary Clinton, her concession speech was sad. She was visibly hurt, visibly upset, trying to stay strong for her supporters and for herself. I'm sure she is not trying to get up on the stage and get some teary eyes and all that. This is a strong woman. This is a woman who has dedicated her life into the office, and I'm sure she's had her sights on this presidency for a long time. So you can imagine when you have done this, this probably is your last shot at it and you missed the target. So she was very upset, but she also wanted to keep the whole conversation of, unity, keeping America together, hoping that Donald Trump doesn't put her in jail. She did shouldn't say that. But, she's just hoping that Donald Trump is going to represent all of the people and not just the people that tend to agree with him. Your pat type of conversation that you would get from a person that just lost the presidential election. She did tell the young women of today to, not lose sight, not lose hope, because she lost this race. There are a lot of setbacks that she's had, along with a lot of gains that she's had in her career. And this was just one more, setback. But life goes on. So she thanked her family, her husband, her daughter, her son-in-law, her grandkids. And that was it. I feel bad for Hillary Clinton because I think this is it for her. I don't think that she has the wherewithal to go through this again. I think the people have spoken, and she is not the candidate that the Democrats want to put in office. So that was her speech. And then President Obama, his speech was more to just kind of keep everybody level and just to remind everybody that, there were differences between the Democrats and the Republicans when he came into office. So it can be expected to be differences when he leaves office and Donald Trump, gets into office. However, he will definitely make sure that there is a peaceful transfer of power. Ain't gonna be no shit. He ain't trying to hide nothing from him. As a matter of fact, I think Donald Trump is supposed to be going to the White House as of today. Him and his family. They've already cleared him for security, national classified things that he needs to know before he gets in office. There's nobody that's going to be hiding shit from him. President Obama has already instructed his staff to be as forthcoming as they can be. And I expected him to be that way because he's a politician and he knows how it works. What's going to be rough is when Donald Trump is ready to leave the office and he got to pass the torch on to somebody else. So that was it for the speeches. Speeches are just talk, though, and, like I said, it remains to be seen what happens in each of those cases. Yeah, that's that. So there's been anti-Trump protests in at least 10 cities. I think they said in Oakland, Atlanta, New York, Chicago, St. Paul, Minnesota, D.C., Boston, Philly, Oregon, all around people are marching and they're screaming, not my president, no racist USA. Most of them have been peaceful. However, there's been some hiccups along the way. They've had some arrests in some of the cities, but other than that, we haven't had. There was a shooting in Seattle, I think they said, but it has nothing to do with the Trump protests. Okay, so other than that, yeah, people are protesting, which is unprecedented because, usually when people run for presidency, the people are not this mad where they got to feel like they go out and protest. But this is definitely a community now of people who like to protest. They like to go out and they like to, march on the streets and let their feelings be known. Now, protest in a presidential campaign or a presidential election doesn't mean anything. Okay, I don't know what they want to achieve other than they just want the attention. Well, not the attention, but they want their feelings, their voice to be heard. And maybe somewhere along the line, it affects some decisions from the people. I guess they're hoping that it would be social pressure on some decision makers along the line. But just protests by themselves, when it comes to an election, it's not going to change anything. Donald Trump is still going to be the president. But I think they personally make the person feel better that they've got out and they've done something. Have any of you guys got out and done any of the protesting for Donald Trump or against Donald Trump? They said that they were right in front of where he lived. That can't be a good feeling to know that you just won the presidency, but everybody's out there yelling at you that they don't want you. But then again, Donald Trump might have very thick skin and he might not give a fuck because, like I said, it doesn't make a difference. And if he was extremely petty, maybe he could do something to stop these protests and, make it harder for people to do it. But, I don't think he will because, people have freedom of speech and freedom to demonstrate, So, the protest is fine, but they're all over the place. There may be a few more and then eventually it will die down because that's usually how it goes. You guys let me know if you guys have gone out and gone to any of the protests or if you're a part of any plans to express your feelings in a protest this weekend. Y'all leave your comments about all that below. Guys, so with all of the love that Colin Kaepernick has received with him taking a stance against, standing for the national anthem, I feel like Colin Kaepernick has taken a few steps back when he finally let the people know that he was not voting. He actually said, and I quote, "It doesn't really matter who goes in there, the system still remains intact that oppresses people of color." So, see, this is one of the things where I don't even know how to explain. See, the millennials, we got to discuss the millennials because they're a different bunch. The millennials want to make a difference in our political structure and in the system that does oppress people. I'm not quite sure what the plan is when you take a stance that you're just going to not vote. Like, if you're not going to be active in trying to physically change the system, then what exactly are you achieving? I don't understand. Like, even if this election had something to do with local things too. Okay, there were propositions and amendments and, different things that have something to do with your community that you have more direct control of. That if you skip a general election like this, then you are not contributing to making any changes there. There was a really big amendment. There was a big proposition here in Atlanta where the state was trying to take over the school system, basically, and being able to come in if the schools were not thriving, if they were having some problems, the state would be able to come in. The governor was going to appoint a special person to go in and, could potentially fire the whole staff and bring in some shit that they thought was going to happen at the state level, when the local level people probably know better what they need in their community. And people went out and voted against it. That was a big deal here, because when they say schools that aren't thriving, you already know that it's inner city urban schools. So basically you have the state that wants to come in and control inner city schools. We can get all colorful and floral in the wording, but that's what it was. So people voted on that and they said no, and it stopped it. So my whole feeling is you not wanting to vote and all of that, but I just wish I knew what the plan was to make the change then, because just you not deciding to stand up, what is that changing? You're fine, don't stand up, and I admire what Colin Kaepernick was trying to do with that, but I don't understand what's the plan then? What's the plan here? And that's what you get, that with a lot of millennials right now talking or not voting, okay? I think they, people not taking the vote seriously, the write-ins. They said Harambe got like 15,000 votes, which it was just ignorant, but where we can't quite all meet up is, if you don't like the system now, then how do you plan to change the system? Even if you don't like voting, that's what we got right now. So I'm just trying to understand it. And my young folks out there, you guys are welcome to explain to me if you feel that there's a better way of doing it, because people always say we need to organize and we need to do this but what does that mean exactly? Bring it down. I want you to cipher it down to something very individual so we can understand. Child, is that pits? Oh, I thought those were sweat pits under there. Cipher it down so that we can really have an outline plan of what your steps are going to take to turn around this oppression. I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of rambling. I just want to know, if we're not making the changes locally, then what exactly is the plan? That's all I want to know. That's all I want to know. Azealia Banks, you guys remember when she was a supporter of Donald Trump and then she withdrew her support once she found out that he was grabbing whole pussies out there. She said, and I quote, "I think Donald Trump is evil, like America is evil, and in order for America to keep up with itself, it needs him." Okay, so she withdrew her support. Well, what a difference a day makes now that Donald Trump has won the election. She's changed and she's become a supporter again. This time she said, and I quote, "I'm fucking proud as fuck of you. I must say that I am truly inspired by this and feel deep amounts of vindication. Thanks for letting me know that I am not crazy, even though I fronted a few times. Liberals run Hollywood and it's been a cold world out here for me as a Trump supporter." Y'all listen, Azealia, I can't even... Maybe Azealia would like to be invited to the White House along with Wendy Williams. steps. So, I mean, if the child wants to change her mind and become I think it's more of her just trolling, more of her just kind of being like, aha, you guys thought that you guys had Hillary in the bag. You know, she pointed out that Jay-Z and Beyonce, and she called Pharrell Jiminy Cricket. I was cracking up with this damn hat. He did look a little Jiminy-ish. But she said that they was molded, that they had been shucked and jived, you know, for the world to see, thinking that they were going to get Hillary in office, and it didn't work. So I think she's more just lashing out at the community that she's in that does not accept her, and it works out perfectly that it's Donald Trump, because he again is also the underdog, and you know, a lot of people have problems with him, so maybe she associates herself with him. But other than that, child, I cannot with Azalea. If that's her boy, then good for her. Guys, then lastly, this is kind of just a soapbox kind of thing, so y'all just deal with me for now. Let me say what I gotta say, and then we'll just move on from there. Okay, I have a handful of rock stars who feel that I have been unfair, that they have been underrepresented, or they've been slighted for their feelings for Trump, that they voted for Trump and they feel like, you know, I, along with the black community, have kind of lashed out at them for their feelings or for their vote. What did I tell you guys last week? Okay, when I have a feeling about something that is not necessarily popular, I usually stay away from it. I still feel that way, but I don't feel like getting onto camera and expressing something that I know the majority of my viewers don't feel the same way for. I could sit here and say how I felt about a certain issue. However, I know that there's going to be a lot of pushback, a lot of controversy, a lot of people telling me off, and it's going to get me in my feelings, and then I'm going to want to argue with them, and we're going to be going back and forth. I'm going to lose viewers. People are going to feel a certain way about me, and I don't want that. I would rather just feel how I feel, do what I got to do to support how I feel, and move along with it. It's the same in a situation like this. You have a black person who votes for Donald Trump. That is not the majority feeling of black people. Okay, I realize that there's plenty of black Donald Trump supporters out there. And I'm not saying that you have to hold your feelings for Donald Trump inside. But what I'm saying is, if you feel that you must scream it from the mountaintops, and if that's what you want to do, it is perfectly fine. But if you do that, you have to expect some pushback. People are upset, people are emotional. The same way that you want to say how you feel, they want to say how they feel. So it's not necessarily a feeling that, you know, all black people trying to think the same and crabs in the barrel, and, you know, this whole mob mentality and everybody thinking, you know, it's not that. It's just that this is an election. It's a highly emotional election. People have their way that they feel, and I was a Hillary supporter, so what I said yesterday in my video was how I felt. I don't think that is, I should feel bad that I felt that way because you voted for Donald Trump and he won. The same way you shouldn't feel bad that I feel that way when you voted for Donald Trump and he won. I'm personally not going to curse out a Donald Trump supporter, but I understand that it happens. What seems like it would be easier is if you, as a Donald Trump supporter and a black person, would join forums where people, you know, think the same as you. You know, you can get the support of people that have the same ideals or values or, you know, happiness that they voted for Donald Trump and that he won. And you wouldn't have to deal with fussing with back and forth with people. I mean, if you want to fuss with them, then fine. But if you don't want to have to do that, then just go to an environment where people agree with what you say. People in this form that listen to me, for the most part, not all of my viewers, but a lot of them think a little bit along the lines that I do. I mean, and I'm not saying directly exactly. There's plenty of times when people disagree with me, but along the lines in general. Okay, so I don't want people to feel like I'm being a certain way or biased when that's just how I felt. It's not biased. I wanted Hillary Clinton to win. It's a race. It's a game, basically. When my team, or when I don't win, if I don't cross the finish line first, then I should be able to be upset, just like the person that won should be really excited. So that's all it is. I don't want people to be upset with me about the politics, and you guys know that I didn't even used to even like talking about politics. I've gotten more comfortable with it with this election, but I still don't know the ins and outs of the candidates and their whole history and the things that have happened. And you guys know how I feel about foreign policy and all that. I'm learning. I've come to like talking about it a little bit more, but this is the kind of stuff that I used to be, that I used to shy away from, is people just being really upset and thinking, a certain way about me because our feelings are different politically. But that's it, you guys. I'm willing to let Donald Trump do what he says he's going to do. I'm willing to see if he's able to get this stuff achieved. He's going to cut taxes, but he wants to build infrastructure. I would love to see that happen. I work in infrastructure, and I see plenty of times a lot of things that need to be done in the communities. But if the money is not there, then it can't be done. People complain about roads and, falling apart buildings and, lighting, making the neighborhoods beautiful and all types of things. But that money has to come from somewhere. So I would like to see Donald Trump do that. If he can do that, that would make my job a whole lot easier. I'm not against the man doing it. If the man is able to do it, that would be something fantastic to see. Okay? I think that for the most part, we just feel that a lot of the things that he says he's going to do is not going to serve our best interest. I am willing to admit the Democratic Party, with the things that have gone on right now, have made me feel like I need to take a look at my party. Either demand some changes, try to be a part of this change, or possibly looking at other parties. Okay, listen, I was listening to Nina Turner this morning on the radio, who's a senator. Where is she? In Ohio, I believe. I think it's Ohio. And she said that the Democrats went to sleep on this election. Okay, they assumed a lot of things that did not happen. All right, and this was a wake-up call for the Democrats that we need to not assume, okay, we need to not cater and pander anymore, but we need to start really making some changes that the common folk can see is not this prize in the sky, but something that is really achievable and attainable right now. There were 6 million less people voting this year democratically than they did 4 years ago. That is a lot of votes that are missing. So that means that the Democrats they were apathetic. They did not feel that they needed to get out there and do anything, and now we see what has happened. I know there's all these percentages about how many black people voted. They're saying, Hillary Clinton got 80 or 90% of the black vote or the Latino vote. I'm not giving you guys exact numbers, but that's the general thing. But they said only 49%, I believe, of black people voted. So when you get 80% of 49%, that's a whole lot of people that didn't vote, black people. The numbers only make sense relatively. So when you start looking at the bigger picture, then that's when it starts to open up and just be like, oh yeah, we really didn't get out there like we said we were. And we know that just from, we ain't got to do no polls. We can talk to the people and, our homeboys, our homegirls, and they'll be like, nah, I ain't even go out there. I ain't care. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done for the Democrats, and I am now seeing that. People are all going on and on about Donald Trump, and maybe he's going to be impeached. They don't think he's going to last this 2 years, and don't put your eggs in the basket. The same way you don't need to put your eggs in the basket about him not getting voted in at the Electoral College is the same way you don't need to count on impeachment. The man is going to be the president, and we just going to have to roll with that. So he's got rape cases and Trump University, fraud and racketeering and all of that. Okay, that's in the background right now. If he does get impeached from that, then we'll deal with it at that time. But don't count on that, okay? It's just time to we just got to accept it. We just got to see what happens here. And when the 4 years go by, and if he does a fucked up ass job and we can't deal with it no more, then we vote somebody else in. And really, that's just it. That's just it. And I will promise you guys that if he does a very good job, we will not ignore that here either. Ain't shit else we can do. I'm just like, fuck it. I'm tired of the election, okay? Like I said, I am electioned out, and this is going to be the last time that I talk about it, in this large of a capacity. We just gotta, people, I love you all, rock stars, but we just gotta move on. Donald Trump is the president of the United States. You don't have to claim him. I'm not ready to say that he's my president, but he is the president. I need to get off of here and get back to work, man. We are moving furniture. We're moving. My office is moving. So I am exhausted because I've been doing work this morning. Y'all, I am not manual, okay? Roxanne sits her ass at a desk and she types and researches the internet and do all this moving furniture and fucking changing file cabinets. It has put me completely out. I'm tired. So I'm just like, y'all, see, I hire folks for this. Bitch, fix up here breaking my nails and shit trying to get this done. So I got to get back to work. And then you guys know I got my class tonight. Oh, that PHR, SPHR certification, prep class is a bitch. I don't know if it's because it's, I don't work in human resources, so I don't get to use a lot of the concepts that often. It is just hard for me to grasp. Okay, so when I be in the class and there, almost everybody in the class, they all work in HR. So, they all be going on, and I just be like, I'll be trying to niche out a little area in my brain so I can remember it, and then it'd be something else, and these laws, and that shit is hard as hell. So it's be killing me on Thursday nights too. So y'all pray for your girl, because I just, I want to pass this class and do well in it, but it is surely a lot of work, a lot of studying, a lot of reading. But you guys don't care about that. Let me get off of here, you guys. We do this every single week, except for a couple of weeks. At the end of the month, I'm going home for Thanksgiving, so it won't be no top of the blog those 2 weeks, but we'll talk about it. I think I got one more week, and then it's going to be no more, okay? But we'll talk about it more next week. Make sure you rate, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you come back. Until next time, rock stars. Bye.